Welcome back, 𝕆𝖕𝖈 folks. You're watching another episode of 𝕆𝖕𝖈𝖆𝖒, podcast that holds it down for the underground sound here in Ontario, Canada. If you haven't already, make sure you're subscribed to the channel. Helps me out a bunch. You can comment down below things you like about the show, things you don't like about the show, maybe some potential guests you want to see in the future, questions you want to hear me ask, anything. I'm open to anything. This show is yours as much as it is mine. So yeah, leave it something below. Let me know what you're thinking. If you aren't already, follow us on our Instagram. That's where most of our updates happen. That's just at 𝕆𝖕𝖈𝖆𝖒𝖈, 𝕆𝖕𝖈𝖆𝖒𝖈𝖆𝑒𝑠. And if you're a local band and you want to get featured on the show, we do these new Music of the Month episodes where we feature all the new tunes that have come out of that month. Those are only on the audio version of the podcast. Can't do it on YouTube. You know how it is. So if you've got a new tune coming out in the month of March, shoot it my way. I'd love to feature it on the new Music of the Month episode. It's kind of like a radio show. I'm not actually on radio. It's just the audio version, but I do go through and talk a little bit about the bands. There's a lot of new bands always popping up, so if you're always looking for something, definitely check out those episodes. That's why I'm trying to highlight all that cool stuff. Right on. Let's get into some shows. They're the same as last week, but it's just as exciting. We got No Passage Fest happening March 19th at Bridgeworks in Hamilton. That's Like Pacific, A Will Away, Exalt, Forest Green, Falsifier, Nightwell, Judgment, Downswing, Fight Club, Hazel, Napoleon, and Gavel. That's going to be a hell of a time. Indoor Shoes and 𝕆𝖕𝖈𝖆𝖒𝖆 presents 𝕭𝑃rywing, which is a band from the UK. They've been here before. They're coming back again. They're playing a show at the Warehouse here in St. Catharines with the Commuted, Redcoat, Drifter, and my homie from high school, John Lepp. And that's on March 25th. Get your tickets for that. That's going to be a good time. You could get them at 𝕆𝖕𝖈𝖆𝖒𝑟.com, I believe. That's where you can find all that stuff. Thirdly, we've got Cold Shoulder doing a run of shows with Flashback for their Primal Fury release. Make sure you grab their record. I know I pre-ordered mine. Make sure you do yours. March 31st, they're in London with Rum Runners, at Rum Runners, At April 1st, they're in Toronto at Hard Luck Bar. April 2nd, they're in Ottawa, Dominion Tavern. And April 3rd, they're ending that run in Hamilton at the Absinthe. That's going to be a good time. Lots of cool shows. A lot of cool locals on those bills too. I could talk forever about all those people playing those gigs. I could go on. But a lot of cool locals. Make sure you go to those shows. It's going to be a good time. Teeth are doing a run of shows starting April 6th in Hamilton at the Doors, and then April 7th, 𝕭𝖕𝖈𝖆𝖒𝑠 in Toronto, April 8th in Ottawa, Dominion Tavern, April 9th, Montreal at 𝕭𝖕𝖈𝖆𝖒𝑚, April 11th at Rum Runners. That's going to be a good time. And lastly, we've got our homies in the Loose Teeth, and they're playing in Toronto for the Wormwood release with Rust, Still Numb, and Strange Limbs. And that's at Hard Luck Bar on April 15th. Make sure you grab your tickets for that. Gonna be a good time. All right, folks. Let's get into my episode this week. We've got Sam Crowley. He plays in the Electric Dead. He plays in Temple of Night, The Wake. He is a hardworking individual in Niagara. When I first saw Temple of Night, they do the whole 9 yards. They got the cloaks on. They've got these, they're not real torch, they're kind of like fake torches, but they definitely add to the essence. They've got the corpse paint. Love it. They're a cool band. If you're into that kind of thing, definitely check it out. It's super cool. All right, folks, let's get into this episode. All right, folks, thank you for tuning in to another episode of 𝕆𝖕𝖈𝖆𝖒𝖆𝖒, podcast that holds it down for the underground sound here in Ontario, Canada. And I'm your host, Phil Paxton. My shirt this week is Wildside, repping the hardcore band. I don't know if you folks been noticing, but I've been repping as many local band tees as I can on these shows. And just here to support. My guest this week, we got Mr. Sam Crowley. Thank you for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
You're the guy that Ozzy wrote the song about, right?
It's true. It's
Yeah.
true. Yeah, it's all about me.
Now, if you want to give the viewers and listeners a bit of a background about yourself, what you do, what bands you play in.
Okay. The bands I'm playing in right now are the 𝕭𝖕𝖕𝖈𝖕𝖈, Temple of Night, and the Wake.
Right on, yeah. And do you play the same instrument for all bands?
Sorta. In the 𝕭𝖕𝖕𝖈𝖕 and Temple of Night, I play guitar and do the vocals. In the Wake, I just get to play guitar, and 𝕾𝖕𝖈𝖆𝖕𝖈 does the vocals.
Oh, right on, right on. So you're doing lots of stuff.
Lots of stuff.
Yeah, yeah. And actually, you are one of the first guests that I asked to come on the show before we were a video cast. And
Yeah.
we were doing the whole Zoom thing. And you said, you know what? Hold it off till now. Until we can do this in person. So I'm glad we finally got to do this.
Yeah, no, it's awesome. I really, as funny as it is with all of these things going on, I hate technology. I really, really do. And things like dealing with Zoom or video calls, it infuriates me. Like the second you get that glitching where you're about to say something, but it's not broadcasting at the same speed, so you're kind of talking over each other. I just, yeah, can't deal with it. So I thank you for being patient.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And waiting.
I totally agree with you because I did so many interviews over Zoom. There can be a little bit of a disconnect. There's certainly not the same vibe as being in the same room with somebody.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that we've finally gotten to expand to this point and finally get to have you on the show.
Oh, happy to be here.
Now, I think the last time I saw you in person was probably a show that we played together at the warehouse. I couldn't tell you the date or what it is, but it was probably a Sinner show with Temple of Night.
I think that was the first Temple show.
Really?
Yeah, we only got to do 3 shows. We did that show, which was our first one, and then we did the opener for Green Jelly the following month, which is a bizarre mix, but it was awesome. And then we played up at Tail End of the Junction.
Where's that?
It's in Toronto. Apparently, there's an area called the Junction, and
Oh,
this
okay,
is
yeah, the
on
Junction, yeah.
tail end of it. Yeah, we played there, and that was in a December. And then within a couple months, we all know what happened.
Yeah.
And everything just kind of disappeared.
And that was the last gig you got to play?
Yeah. Yeah.
Have you...
So we did 2 live streams.
Right.
Yeah, we did one at the Upper Space.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then we did one out of the studio basement that we rehearse in. And Pesta, our other guitar player, he's a technical genius.
Okay, yeah,
right?
yeah.
I'm like, I've been called like a Luddite. Like, I hate technology. He's amazing with it. So he was able to set up a fantastic live stream. And Cam Schwartz
Yep.
came and did like the moving cam and stuff like that. And we did it all in black and white. And it was really cool. Still not my favorite thing.
I was just going to say.
Because live streaming, like, when you're basically playing to a wall and you're trying to like, it just feels so insincere.
Yeah.
But at least we got to do something and play a few new songs that we had been working on. So that was good. But again, not the same.
And have you guys been recording or doing much over like the pandemic? You've been releasing a couple songs here and there.
Yeah. Actually, there's a lot of it was stuff we had recorded. So each band is kind of in a different stage of what they're doing.
Yep.
Temple has still one song from our original set of 5 recordings to release, but we were approached by a production company and we're in the process of shooting a pro video for it.
Oh, cool.
So we haven't released the mix on that one, but we've almost got another 5 songs ready to go. So we'll be heading into recording those really, really soon. The 𝕭𝖕𝖈𝖈𝖈, our second album we have 1 song left to mix.
Right.
And that one's ready to go. I don't know when that's going to come out because we want to release it on vinyl.
Yeah.
And because of COVID, I've heard there's vinyl.
Yeah, there's huge pushbacks. Yeah.
Or whatever. So who knows? We have recorded released a few mixes of a couple of the new songs, just as a little something to put out something.
Mm-hmm.
And then The Wake is our first album is like 80% done. We just got some backup vocals and I got to put some guitar solos and things on there, but the vast majority of it is is completed. So each band is kind of in a different stage of completion, but all really exciting things coming.
Yeah. So you haven't gotten to play any shows post like pandemic in no way.
No, the Electric Dead did in
Yeah.
that brief window. We played. We were in Toronto. We were at the Rock Pile and then Cherry Cola's when things were still like, if you get out of your seat, you have to wear a mask,
Yeah.
kind of thing. And I mean, at the Rock Pile, the audience was so far away, and like they had to be seated, and we had these plexiglass shields in front of our faces.
weird.
And, like, it was weird.
Yeah.
So even though you're there and that's great, it's still pretty disconnected.
Yeah.
You know? And then the one at Cherry Cola's, the very nature of Cherry Cola's means you're closer to the audience, which
Right.
was better. They still had to be seated, but at least they can only be a few feet away from you because it's much smaller. And then we played our Halloween show, right? And that by then, you know, as long as you had an open drink in your hand, you were impervious to all danger. So it was a funny thing.
Yeah.
So that was a lot more relaxed, and people were able to come up to the front of the stage, and it felt like a real show again.
Like a real show.
Yeah.
Now I know both scenarios aren't ideal, but if you had to choose between a live stream or like those weird constricted concerts, what would you choose?
The weird constricted
Yeah,
concerts.
yeah.
Because again, you're getting ready to do the live stream, and it's like, okay, we're on in 10 minutes. And then something crashes, and my hatred of technology rises up. Right? It's like, at least with the restricted audiences and all those things, it's you turn on your amp, you play, and generally everything works. It doesn't have the same energy, but everything at least works.
Yeah.
Right. So, yeah.
You can also tell if people are enjoying themselves, you know, like playing live rather than a live stream. You don't know until after you're done if people even were watching, dug it, or any sort of like. When obviously you're playing a show, you can tell if someone's digging you by, you know, if they're watching you or if they're out for a smoke. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, we in the second Temple live stream that we did out of our studio space, Pesta had set up a whole like widescreen TV monitor so we could kind of see what people were saying. But that's a problem because you're playing and you glance down and someone's writing some smart-assy comment in there and you get distracted, right? It's not like the distraction that comes from an audience like moving around. Like, that's not distracting, right? But all of a sudden you're reading some comment there and no, don't engage with that.
Yeah.
Like, face the camera. Like, it's so, yeah, not great.
Now, has there been any bands in Ontario that's caught your attention within the last couple of years or so? Anything that you've been jamming more so?
Yeah, I mean, there's different bands. Each of my bands kinds of lives in a different scene.
Yeah.
So, I get to kind of play with different bands. Like with the Electric Dead, we have played with House of Haunt or Rehab for Quitters so many times, and they're such amazing bands, and they're so much fun. Blood Opera, like there's all these great bands in that kind of like horror rock genre. Rehab for Quitters isn't horror rock, but they're such great people and such a fun band. Again, Temple of Night didn't really get to do too much. Like, we were just kind of stepping. We haven't done like a real like total black metal show. But Stolos out of Kitchener, holy smokes,
they're a cool band.
Like, they're one of my favorites. I was really digging Astaroth Incarnate, but unfortunately they have folded. And there's another black metal band, For Mother.
Okay, cool.
That's kind of up and coming. We were trying to set some things up, and then the second, you know, the fall version of like everything's canceled happened. So that didn't happen. Yeah. But Nordic Winter.
Oh, cool.
I really dig. Yeah. They're out of Quebec, but please forgive me for saying the name wrong, but 𝕾𝖕𝖕𝖋 or something. Yeah. It's the spelling is funny, but I love them. I love them, and I've messaged back and forth with them a few times because they were really digging the Temple stuff, and super nice people and awesome music.
So you've been playing music for quite a while now, right?
So I started when I was 17.
17, eh? What was that first band?
It was a terrible cover band, and because the singer in the band, I'm I'm not going to gratify him with even mentioning what that band was called.
Okay.
Right? Like nothing. But I was just a kid, 17. I played bass in that band. It was just covers. It was nothing earth shattering. But like my first show ever was at the old Hideaway.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
Open mic night. Right?
Really?
Yeah. And Jen, the drummer from Astral Witch,
Yeah. Yeah.
was the drummer in that band.
Oh,
so
cool.
I've known her since 10th grade.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And so that was fun. And then from there, Jen and I were in a band called The Wicked.
Yeah.
And that band went through many incarnations. My buddy Chester from, I keep wanting to say he was in Coffin Rot with Cam Schwartz way back in the day.
Okay.
And now that I need to say his new band's name, which is a brutal death metal band, and they're amazing out of Halifax, and the name is eluding me, and he's gonna punch me so hard. Luckily, he's much smaller than me, so I'll be okay. It'll come to me when I'm not trying to think of it so hard. But yeah, so he was the bass player in that, and it was kind of like we were super into like White Zombie and stuff.
Cool.
And so it was kind of like a horror metal kind of thing, and then different drummers came in, different guitar players, and yeah, so that band had a lot of different incarnations, but that was kind of the first serious band. We got to open for the Misfits.
Oh, fun.
On the American Psycho tour when they
that's
played
cool.
at, what was that? It was that pub on King Street there. Dang.
No.
It was in that little plaza on right across from the that hotel that just burnt down.
Right across from there.
Yeah.
Was it a cougar bar?
No. No. It was kind of like a sci-fi kind of bar.
Oh, really?
Dang. My memory's not so great. My memory's terrible. When you were like, come up with a couple of things that were interesting, I was like, oh, geez.
Yeah.
All right, okay, I can do that.
I can see what I can do, yeah.
Yeah, and so that band did some really cool things. And then from there, I did my first stint in a local industrial band called MDM.
Okay, cool.
Which was with the other two guys in the Electric Dead.
Yeah.
We were all in that band together, except it was a very different lineup. I just played guitar. Keisho, our current bass player, was the vocalist, and Dickie was the drummer. Again, actually, he was a keyboard player for a little while, and then he became the drummer. And I left that band to be in a different industrial band. Went back into MDM, which was it was during that time where my first story.
Okay.
You're like, come up with some stories. Okay. So we got an opener for KMFDM.
Yeah.
And obviously we were pretty excited about that. It was kind of the scene we were in. And the week before the gig, I was in a martial arts tournament.
Okay.
And do you know Kendo?
I'm familiar with it.
It's like the Japanese version
stick?
of fencing, like it's sword fighting, but with bamboo
Yeah.
swords. Yeah. So I was in a tournament doing that, and I broke my the bone of my pinky, like right across. The pinky was just kind of hanging there.
Jesus.
And so I got all casted up, and like these two fingers were free, but everything else was in a cast. And I had to call the guys and be like, I broke my hand. And of course, tensions are high.
Right.
But I kind of sat down in college and university. I was a classical guitar player. So, I had the little footstool and things. I was like, well, what if I do this? And I got my foot up and I got my guitar there. And because there was just a little bit of meat there, I could kind of palm mute. And I was like, okay, I can play, but I've got to sit down. So for this really exciting opener that we had, and there was it was at the Moose and Goose.
Yep.
And it was packed. And so we're opening for KMFDM, and I've got to sit there while everyone else is rocking out. And I can remember like playing and just shaking my head to myself, like going like, come on. But the KMFDM guitar players thought that was really cool, that even though I'm walking in with this big cast, like the show was going on. Right. So I got professional respect there, but
Nice.
it didn't really make me feel any better.
That's wild.
So yeah, and then after that, I kind of left playing music for about 7-8 years.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I kind of some other things were going on, and so I just kind of put it away, and even went so far as like sold all my equipment.
Really?
I've always had a classical guitar kicking around, but yeah, I sold all my electrics. Like I just got rid of everything, and then once that part of my life was over, it started to actually, as that part of my life was coming to a close, I started to get the itch again, right? So
right.
buy an electric guitar, you start, getting the fingers and hands back in shape, and then originally what I really wanted to do was start a black metal band right then, right? Because I'd always dreamed of like making this massive, epic black metal band. Because ever since I heard In the Nightside Eclipse when I was 18, which for me is a really, like, it was brand new at the time. Let's put it that way. It had just come out. I'd always wanted to do something like that. It just really spoke to me, but my chops were not happening.
You're just not up to it.
Yeah. Luckily, I was also a really big Danzig fan, and for the Misfits, so I started, what happens if I go that way? And that was much more within my new skill set, and I started writing songs, and I wrote 2 songs and sent them to my former MDM bandmates, just to say, hey guys, just listen to what I'm doing and give me some feedback. And Keisha was like, we have to do this. This has to be a band. I'm like, oh, I wasn't expecting that, right? So then it became like, okay, I'm going to need an amp. So you buy some equipment, and we kind of bought like entry level equipment because we were like, who knows if this is gonna continue. But I kept writing songs, and they kept liking the songs, and so after a couple of years of doing that, we upgraded to some real equipment, and which is why our second album, oh man, the sounds we've got on it. I mean, we're using better equipment, and Keisha's upgraded his studio, and he's learned a lot of things, and so the second album is sounding like really, really killer.
That's awesome.
But yeah, so that was kind of the how that went, and then we had completely written, and we were rehearsing the second album, and I knew that those guys would really want to just focus on that, but at that point, like, constantly writing, being creative was really, really important to my mental state. So I was like, I need to keep writing, but I didn't want to write these songs that were just going to get shelved. So I thought, I'm going to write black metal, right? I've been back to playing for a few years. Fingers are working. Let's try this. Kind of a similar situation. I demoed a couple of songs, and was hanging out at 𝕭𝖕𝖈𝖆𝖒𝖕, and where the Temple Bile, our bass player, works there.
Yeah.
And he and I have been chatting for quite some time, and I said to him, hey, I've been writing some black metal, and I sent him in the rough demos, like with, I know enough about drums, I can program some realistic drums and some keys and all that stuff. And he was like, oh, if this ever becomes a thing, I'd like to play bass. Okay, I'll keep that in mind. But never thinking, because like, it was fast. It was like, and I had been out of touch with the music scene, especially that part of the music scene, for a really long time. So I didn't know anyone, like, really. So it was kind of a nice little, like, oh, that's a nice compliment. He'd like to play bass. And I went home. Went back to 𝕭𝖕𝖈𝖆𝖒𝖕 a week later, and Pesta, our guitar player, was working there at the time. And I guess they had been talking, and they said, well, I want in too. He said, I want in too, right? Like, okay. And I knew that we would need a keyboard player. And Valhalla, our keyboard player, was the keyboard player back in the Wicked.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, she was in there too. Like,
yeah.
I've known some of these people for like most of my life.
Yeah.
And so I was like, There's only one person I can think of that would be able to do this. So I message her and I'm like, you want to play black metal? And she was all about it. And in the meantime, she's become like a full-fledged opera singer. Like she's sung in Italy, and like she teaches at universities. Like we have a doctor of music
Wow.
in our black metal band, and she's a monster, right? Like, it's amazing. And so I went back to 𝕭𝖕𝖆𝖈𝖆𝖒𝖕 and told those two. I was like, okay, all we need is a drummer. And they said, call this guy. And I had known Impaler from playing in various, and like we were on good terms. We kind of just knew each other, like those people around the scene, and easygoing guy. Messaged him, and so within 2 weeks from like, hey, I've been writing black metal, I had like this whole band of like top-notch crazy players. We were a band, and we've been a band ever since.
Yeah.
So again, it was just weird way that all came together, and just how what a powerhouse band it is now. Sometimes I'm at rehearsal and watching everyone, and shaking my head, going, "How did this happen?"
Yeah.
But it's really amazing. And then actually, the wake was also just it started with Maddie and I kind of commenting on a similar blues music post, I think, and we both had a mutual love of like Delta blues, old Robert Johnson stuff, and I had said, I've got a resonator guitar, we should mess around with this. And he came over and we messed around for a couple hours, and then both our lives just kind of got busy and it just got shelved. And like a year and a half later, once again through a Facebook comment conversation, we were like, we really should get back to this. And we did. So I wrote a bunch of music and sent it to him, and he immediately was able to write these amazing lyrics and melodies and just totally capture this like spooky, swampy vibe that was so amazing. And then he was writing some songs on guitar that have more of like a dirty outlaw country kind of thing. And then we started talking about, well, we're going to record these, how are we going to do it? So we did our first kind of demo, and he played some drums on, just using an electronic kit.
Yeah.
And Dan Mackey did the engineering on that, and we had a great time. And we were like, oh, they were like, you should put slide on it. I was like, I've never played slide in my life. Okay, I've got one. And so I kind of did these slide solos and stuff. I was like, oh, that's kind of fun, right? And so then as we were looking at, okay, taking it further, suddenly I was like, okay, maybe we should have a band. And so we got Richard Sin formerly of the Screaming Black Cadillacs, and now he's in the Border City Beatdowns. Amazing bass player. Like, he walked in, first of all, super nice guy. Like, I don't like new people most of the time.
Sure.
I like when I play music. I want to play with my friends and people I like. So like,
absolutely.
Bringing in people that I don't know, it's always a little.
It can be tough.
How's this gonna go? But he was fantastic right out of the gate. Like, I immediately felt comfortable with him, and he's such a great player. And Pesta, the drummer or the guitar player for Temple, well, he had been working on his drum chops, and he kind of said, I'd like a shot at that, and just killed it.
Nice.
So, on this new album, he's done all the drums, and like we've only done one live show. We got to open for the Electric Dead at our Halloween show. That's how you keep more money.
Yeah.
Yourself. So it just amazing. And Maddie, I've known Maddie forever, way back when when I was a teenager in the Wicked, he had a band called Manseed, and we played, just like MDM was in that same, like, if anyone digs out the old Scene 94, Scene 95 CDs, like, we're all on there,
nice.
Right? Like, that's kind of where we all came up from. And so just to have all these people from those days, is amazing. And I mean, I've known Pesta since he was like 12.
Wow.
I was friends with his older sister, and so he'd be, at the house when we would all be over there, and yeah, it's weird, but it's pretty amazing that all these people I've known for so long, how those friendships have continued, and how we all work together, and have kept the creativity alive.
That's insane. Wow. Well, lots of history there.
Yeah, sorry, I don't know how long we
worries.
have. I may have just rattled on.
No, that's great. No, being a fan of horror, and like because with your bands and whatnot, and even playing a killer yourself in a couple videos.
Yeah.
I imagine it's safe to say you're a fan of horror.
Yeah.
Have you watched any new horror movies lately? Have you seen anything within the last couple of years? And I want to know what you think about them.
Okay. Well, we just watched the new Texas Chainsaw sequel.
How did you think of it?
I know a lot of people are saying bad things, and I mean, let's face it, it's never going to be what the original was.
Of course.
Like, the original is...
You could say that about most things, but yeah.
At first I don't like the whole, like, I don't know if I should be giving spoilers away. If the audience is going to be, if they haven't watched it yet, they're going to be angry at me. There was certain elements of it that were kind of like typical... All I'm going to say is like that party bus thing. It was like very typical kind of like, I don't know. I feel like since Scream came out, like that teenage party thing is, I don't like that.
Okay.
But I guess the premise of it was okay. I was, the fact that they just called it Texas Chainsaw Massacre, just like Halloween 2018 was just called Halloween. And then they brought back, the woman, what's her character's name?
In Halloween, Laurie.
Well, yeah, Laurie Strode, but then in Texas Chainsaw...
Sally.
Sally and Hardesty. Yeah. They brought her back, and of course, she's a badass now, right? And I'm like, oh boy, are we just like... But when they got to the ending, I was like, okay, you clearly have gone your own way here. And that's okay.
Yeah.
So I enjoyed it for what it was.
Yeah.
It wasn't, I think some of the other movies that have made actually more of like a wow impact on me are like The Witch.
Yeah, that one's
or Midsommar.
I haven't seen The Witch, but I've heard lots about it. I haven't seen Midsommar, but I've seen Hereditary. That's the one.
Yeah. These kind of
that
like
one's fucked up.
Slow burn thinkers, or like, I know it's old, but like The Wicker Man.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay.
Like,
yeah.
That kind of like with Midsommar and The Wicker Man, where clearly these people are like the bad guys, but because of I'm kind of on their side.
Yeah.
Right? I'm like, yeah, keep your island, keep these people off your island, or like keep your old traditions, and like the outside world sucks.
Yeah.
Keep doing your thing, and when people come in, well, that's the way it goes.
That's kind of how I felt about with the new Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I felt like the entire time I was like, yeah, Leatherface has like every right to kill all of these people. Like, I'm for this. I enjoyed it for the wrong reasons, I feel like. I feel like I was a lot of the time going, no fucking way, this is ridiculous. But I was also enjoying it. Like,
yeah.
I thought it was really dumb, but still really fun.
And yeah, I thought it was interesting that he had kind of been tamed.
Yeah.
And just, again, I'm sorry if you haven't seen it, and it's spoilers.
Yeah.
But when she's saying, like, stay out of my room, and you're like that's kind of a weird thing to say, but then you see why she wants him, and you're like, whoa. Like, yeah, it was kind of neat that someone had managed to tame him, but like without that, game over.
Game over. That was it. Awesome. All right, well, I think we could get into some more anecdotes with each other. So, let me know a couple more stories that you have from being in bands and band culture, whether it's on the road or in the studio or anything between.
Okay. Well, I told you about how I broke my hand.
Yeah, that's pretty wild.
Yeah, and being in the Duskwalker video as the Shadow Creeper was awesome.
Yeah.
Right? And because it was in the 97.7 building, which, since I was a kid, you've heard stories about the secret tunnels and the history and the ghosts. I'd always wanted to go in there, right? And to be able to see, like, the back areas, right? Like, not just, like, the front lobby.
Did you see anything creepy in there? Like anything weird happen?
No,
Nothing.
Unfortunately, no. But just to be in there and to see that history,
Yeah.
and to and to get to work with Cam and the Rabid Dog people, because again, I've known Cam back when he had his radio show at Brock with Metal Dan. Like, they would have
Chronic Aggression.
The folks from the Wicked. We'd be on there, and we always had a great time. And he's a fantastic guy.
He's a great guy to be around.
So getting to work with them, and the Duskwalker folks are awesome. Like, so I get to go in this building I've always wanted to go in, and I get to be this horrific monster and do all this stuff. Great time.
Yeah, you get to play out that fantasy, right?
Yeah, it was it was really good.
Who came up with that idea? Like, did they approach you and go like, "We need a killer," and you're like, "Say no more."
Yeah, that's kind of what they said. They had this idea. Well, they had the song "The Shadow Creeper."
Yep.
And I guess because of my whole Temple of Night outfit, which is basically, it's what I wore. I wore my, I wore the long sleeve version of it, but yeah, and I wore these contacts and then all the makeup, and they had rubber hands for me and all this stuff, and yeah, so they, I guess, saw that, and I'm a big person, right? So that you can't tell on the screen, but it's I can be a little imposing, I suppose, if especially when they're shooting upwards. Yeah, that's good fun. A funny story is an Electric Dead story. We were playing at, here goes my memory again. It was a bar in the basement. It was like a metal club. It's closed now. It's gone.
Where?
In Toronto.
Oh,
sorry.
Okay. Coalition?
That's the one.
Yeah.
So we were playing there, and having a great time, and the audience started to. First of all, I smelled this horrific smell, and I thought like someone in the audience had a gas problem,
right?
And I'm thinking to myself, while I'm playing, I'm thinking, you rotten bastard. How could you do this?
Dropped us the whole concert.
Yeah, like we're having a great time here, and you're like stinking us out. And so I'm a little grumpy about that.
Yeah.
But then the audience starts to move away, and the Electric Dead has had I feel very fortunate that people have really kind of taken to that band.
Yeah.
Usually it goes the other way. We start playing and people start coming closer.
Yeah.
Being in some of the other bands like the Wicked back in the day, like I have experienced clearing an audience because they just didn't like you.
Right, yeah.
Right? So it was kind of like, no, not again. This shouldn't be happening.
Yeah. These songs are new!
Exactly. And then someone from the bar came up on the side and said, like, you got one song left and we've got to clear the bar. A sewer pipe had broken and the floor in front of the stage. So it wasn't some audience member with a horrific gas problem. There was literally sewer water pouring up into the venue. So for the first time ever, we had to be evacuated.
Right.
And cleared out. Like, and that was it. The show was over. And so we...
Talk about a shit show.
Well, we joked, you've seen Dogma?
Yeah.
The 𝕊𝖆𝖈𝖆𝖈?
Yeah.
So we joked that we summoned the 𝕊𝖆𝖈𝖆𝖈
That's right.
At that show.
Yeah.
And
you hit the brown note.
Someone did. But just the whole process of like, from me thinking it was an audience member crop dusting us to,
you need to leave.
And and then people were still rocking out, and I remember getting splattered.
Oh no.
Right? And going like, what the hell? Who's throwing water, or what's going on? At least it didn't get in my mouth.
Yes. That's good. Wow. That's insane. And that was at Coalition, eh?
Yeah.
Yeah. That was a cool club. I liked that place. Aside from the plumbing issues.
Was that a regular thing there?
No, I don't know.
Oh, okay. I was like, wow.
Can you imagine? That was just like...
That's its claim to fame?
Yeah.
Occasionally floods with sewage.
Great turnouts, though.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no. Up until that point, we were having a great time.
Yeah.
So it's... that was definitely a weird one. We played a couple of... Again, the Electric Dead Temple. I don't have too many Temple stories because we only got to play a few shows, and thankfully, knocking on wood, disaster has not struck us at rehearsal and things like. It's been pretty calm, and again, the wake is also really new. We've only done one show, so again, not too many things. But the Electric Dead has been booked twice to play these birthday parties, like private functions.
Okay.
And again, we really appreciated it. Like we were treated really well, fed, all these things. But like when you think, oh, you're a private party, you kind of imagine yourself like in a like a basement or like maybe on a back patio of a house and you're setting things up. Neither of those shows turned out like that.
Okay.
The first one, we pulled up and it's out in the middle of nowhere on this old farm. So right away, where does my head go? It's the Texas Chainsaw
Texas
House.
Chainsaw Massacre. Yeah, that's right.
And they kind of led us around. You know, they're like, okay, come around the back, and you know, it's early afternoon. There's already people who are, you know, have clearly been partying since the early hours of the morning. And you're like, okay. And we had to cross this bridge over this like really deep, wide, almost like a creek, right? But they had like these two metal things. It was like you had to line your wheels up and go across.
Like you had to drive
the bridge of death.
Oh,
yeah.
wow.
So you went across this bridge, and then they had this whole big covered stage with lights and the whole, like, this was just their thing, right?
Okay.
And so we set up, we sound check. Someone went unconscious and passed out, and had, like, it was, so we're like, oh, this is interesting. Again, everyone's being nice to us, but it's just like, it was just such a complete change from showing up to a club, you know, plugging in, talking to the sound guy, like, it was different, right? And so we did the show, and then we're leaving, but now we have to cross the bridge of death in the dark.
Oh boy.
Because this is, again, out in the country. There's no street lights.
No, there's no lights.
Nothing.
And your headlights aren't going to do much.
And
you got to
so
go over it, yeah.
I kind of, my car's loaded with all my things, and I'm like, all right, line it up the best I can. And I'm not just going to creep across this thing and, you know, go, I'm just going to have to give her.
Yeah, just 4.
So I did. And my back wheel, just as I was going out, like, if I had gone slow, I probably would have gone in. Oh, yeah. Like, Keisha was like, you almost went in there. I was like, yep. But I just kind of gunned it. And sometimes you just have to go straight ahead.
Gun it and run it.
Yeah.
How was that show?
It was good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Again, it was a private party. It's not like you got like 100 people or anything like that. It was just some people who really liked the music, and there was a couple other bands there, and yeah, we were just one of like 3 or 4 bands. They were just having a good old time there, and then
they were all used to the Death Bridge.
I guess they didn't have to drive across it.
Oh, okay.
I don't think.
There you go.
I don't remember.
That's the kicker.
My mind, it was one of those things where the situation was so unusual, it's become a blur.
Right.
Like picking out big details like the bridge of death and things like that. And for the person passing out, like I can remember those things. But a lot of the other stuff, Deciphering the Pale.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
They were there.
Yeah.
I've known Gord, again, since forever.
Mm-hmm.
So again, an old friend. But yeah, that was a weird one. And then we got booked to play another private function. Again, the guy who booked us, fantastic. Like, love the guy to death.
Mm-hmm.
But again, out in the middle of like nowhere. It took like 2 hours to get there.
It's always the case too, right?
And you pull up, and you're like, oh, okay. It's like it was, again, the really unnerving thing was they had this like a pig roasting spit thing.
Yeah.
Big enough to roast a human.
Oh, God.
I was like, people can fit in that thing. So and then they had like this cookhouse right in the middle, a very rustic kind of. So again, you're like, Texas Chainsaw things are going through your head. But that audience was amazing. We had a great time. And you wouldn't expect to sell a ton of merch at a private party, but we did.
You did.
Yeah, it was great, and they fed us, paid us. We sold merch. People, yeah, we had a great time. But again, it's that you don't know what you're getting into when you pull up and you see things where people could be cooked in them, and you're like, oh, I'm out in the middle of nowhere.
Am I gonna be in that thing next? Like, what's gonna happen?
Yeah. Yeah. So it's I don't have crazy stories of drinking and overindulge. That's never been my thing as far as music goes, right? Well,
Right.
one, I've always had to been someone who drives and moves all the gear.
Yeah.
You know, there's some people they've never driven to a gig. They always get a ride, and you know that's the way it works
For
out.
a long time, that was me.
And then there's those people who, every time it comes time to buy a new vehicle, they have to take into account that they're going to haul their band's stuff around.
Yeah.
And that's always been me.
Okay.
Right. So, and that's okay. But so, yeah, always playing sober and just never. It's always been about a great performance, a great experience for the audience. Never about, you know, rock and roll overindulgence and silliness like that. So I don't really have stories about things like that. I have more funny things like venues flooding with sewer water, or, you know, the typical things where your bass player shows up to a gig without his bass.
Yeah.
Or he disappears for a month, and the bass player I'm talking about will know exactly who he is.
Do we have the same bassist?
Well, he disappeared for a month one time.
Like they all do that.
And we had a gig booked, and we were like, okay, well, we'll show up to the gig, just hoping that he would show up. And he did.
He did.
He did. With his equipment that time, too.
Yeah, no questions asked. He's like, I'm here to go, guys.
He's like, what? I'm here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you told me to be here. You're like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Were you in practice?
And, yeah, so, you know, silly things like that happening over the years. But nothing
wild.
No, it was just never a focus.
Right.
Right. It was, like I said, it's about putting on, like, ever since the 𝕭𝖕𝖈, any band I've been in has been theatrical.
Mm-hmm.
Right. There's always been makeup and a whole persona involved to really kind of bring that full experience, because the bands that I really loved all did that. Right. Like 𝕊𝖕𝖈𝖆𝖈𝖈 when I was in high school, 𝕊𝖕𝖈𝖆𝖈 and like the original Misfits were like huge for me.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I don't know if you ever saw 𝕊𝖕𝖈𝖈 back in the day.
I've never seen them, no.
Wow. I was lucky enough, again, it's because I'm old enough. I saw from the front row against the rail so many times.
Really?
Like, just what an explosive, amazing live band. Like, it was, seeing 𝕊𝖕𝖈𝖈 was always amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so like that kind of thing really influenced me. And so, you know, we'd always have props, and like, you know, we had 6-foot Satans on either side of the stage, and banners and lights and flaming pumpkins and all this stuff. And in MDM, you know, we had extra lights and like a whole show. And then, I mean, you've seen what we do with the Electric Dead with a 3-headed dog. And,
yeah.
And now with Temple, other than our own selves, and we have some torches and things like that, when you get 5 people plus, well, one of them has a whole keyboard rig on stage, you kind of start limiting your extra props, because
that's right,
you don't have space. But yeah, you know, you want to put on a good show. And I mean, I've been into the old Norwegian black metal scene since like Nightside Eclipse. Like, I remember like buying the old zines and following the whole like Euronymous Odyssey and
right.
everything, like when that was all new news.
Yeah.
Right. And like waiting forever for these imports to come in, and like finding a new band. Like when I got the Nordic metal tribute to Euronymous when it first came out, and I heard Mortis for the first time, his Dungeon Synth music.
That's right.
Oh, was a life changer for me. Right. Like, some of those things like Emperor and Mortis have just been staples of my life for like almost 30 years. Yeah. You know, so it's, those were great times back then when you really had to, I know it's nice to be able to just YouTube whatever and you can find it, but like, there was something exciting about discovering this music, and then like going to Tantrum Records or station to station and like placing an import order and
Yeah.
waiting 6 months, and then it finally comes in, and you just treasured those CDs and tapes and things. And yeah, I really I'm glad I got to experience that.
Yeah,
You know, there's really something to that.
for sure. Now, when you're on the road, what's your go-to gas station snack? What's the thing that you grab when you're in a gas station stop?
I like beef jerky.
Yep. Great
Beef jerky-
choice.
Beef jerky's a good one. Yeah, I don't really eat, I try not to eat, like, I used to be a huge fan of Doritos.
Yep, yep.
And then
Until the heart attack.
no.
Just kidding.
Actually, until I had there was a couple, I just tossed a couple out in my yard because I was out on my deck and I didn't want to finish it. So I just kind of like, oh, the animals eat it.
Yep.
I live out in the country, so something's always in my yard.
Yeah.
And then when I went out the next day, and those Doritos were still there.
They were still there.
And I went and then it became like a thing. How long will these Doritos last? And they kept lasting, and it hit me. I was like, not even raccoons, because we got raccoons. Like,
Right.
not even animals will eat these things. I'm not eating this crap
That's
anymore.
That was the realization.
That was like the moment, and I just kind of decided I try to stick to real foods.
Yeah.
And that kind of stuff. I was like, ooh, I'm putting that in my body, like.
That's funny.
Yeah,
It's funny that the animals can like decipher that. They're like, that's shit.
Yeah. I'll eat garbage, but I'm not eating that.
Yeah. What the fuck is that?
So yeah, no thanks. So yeah, eating good food, real food, and so yeah, gas station snacks. Difficult.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Beef
so
jerky's the
that's
only.
where beef jerky is about as good as it gets there.
Nice.
Yeah.
Where's the furthest you've gotten to play from home with any of your bands?
Heading east, Montreal. Heading west, Windsor.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I've never gone across Canada.
Right.
I think,
It's tough.
yeah, and it's just given the career choices and things that I made, it just wasn't feasible. And I'm totally fine with that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? Like, and now we talk about doing a longer stint, and I feel that now. I also feel that now I'm in bands that could do that, whereas there was a certain amount of immaturity in some of my older bands.
Right.
Like when we made The Wicked, we were kids.
Yeah.
Right. And it's one of those things I wish I knew now, or wish I knew then what I know now. Like
Right.
I would approach things so differently. But I have no regrets in that way.
Yeah.
Like it's just music's always been an outlet and something I enjoy doing, but not something I felt compelled to take everywhere.
Sure.
Yeah. So it's I don't have extensive touring experience that way. I'd like to go, I would love to get all the way out to Halifax.
Yeah. Halifax is great.
And Root Cellar, that's his band.
There you go.
Chester's band. See, I told you when I wasn't thinking about it anymore. If you like death metal, you've got to check out Root Cellar out of Halifax. It's kind of this whole like Friday the 13th Part 2, like the Potato Sack kind of.
Okay.
Like, Chester's really, really into like that era of Friday the 13th, and so that's been like a major influence on their stuff, and they're totally awesome. And I apologize, buddy, that I forgot the name of your band.
We
but
got it though.
It's the pressure. The pressure.
That's awesome. Now, if any of your bands, whether it's Electric Dead, Wake, Temple of Night, was at the level of Metallica, you guys are huge, selling out arenas. What is on the rider? What is in the green room waiting for you? What is the rockstar dream rider?
What an interesting question. And one that I've never, ever thought of.
It's one of those, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. What is waiting? One, real food.
Yep.
It's got it like...
A veggie tray.
I eat meat like but it's got to be good,
Yeah,
right? Like
okay,
I don't want
cool.
to eat garbage. Like I don't want like a tray of fast food crap, right? Like
Right.
some real food. Um, yeah, some. I like if I had to choose an alcohol because I don't really drink that much, but I do like crack canoe. This really super light
Yep.
beer. I know some people are like, oh, I know some people who are a bit snobbier with their beer taste. I have
Sure.
simple tastes, right? I've always considered myself a simple person in that way. I don't need deluxe anything. I'm okay.
You're a simple man.
I am a simple man.
You're also what Leonard Skinner wrote about. You're two, both Ozzy and Skinner.
It's all the classic rock is embodied in me. Yeah, no, just some simple things like I don't need, a place to shower afterwards would be nice.
Yep.
My concerns would largely be with, as long as I've got food, a place to get cleaned up, a clean dressing room. I got to tell you, because again, all these bands with all the makeup and contacts, everything. Nothing is more disheartening than walking into the bathroom and one, there's no mirror in the guy's bathroom.
Or there is a mirror and it's just covered with band stickers.
Yes, and then the floor, the walls are so nasty. You're like, oh my god, oh my! Like you just don't want to touch anything.
Yeah,
and you're like balancing things on the top of the paper towel dispenser so they don't touch any. A clean place to get ready.
Yeah,
that's all.
Super important.
The more would be like what I would like to have the budget for in the performance.
Sure.
Right? We a couple of years ago we did we were playing at Taps in the Falls on their outdoor stage, and the Electric Dead Boys were good friends with a performer named Christopher Campbell. He goes, his professional name is �㈗𝖕𝖈𝖆𝖒.
Okay.
He's done a lot of our he'll come down to St. Catharines to do our Halloween shows, and he does things like, eats razor blades. And the first time I met him, these are fun stories. Christopher provides so many fun stories.
Great.
The first time I met him, he was like, would you be part of the performance with me? I was like, okay, what do you want me to do? He's like, how steady are your hands? I'm like, pretty good. He's like, I want you to chainsaw an apple in my mouth.
Jesus Christ.
With an electric chainsaw. And I was like, okay, I can do that. So he told me specifically, what angles. And and so the first time I met Christopher, I was chainsawing an apple in his mouth. When I got off stage, there was a text from my wife saying, I just saw a video of you chainsawing an apple in a man's mouth. Is everything okay? And I'm like, yeah, everything's fine. Because she was just saw it from home, right?
That's right.
So with Christopher, I've chainsawed an apple in his mouth. He's had me push like Electric Dead buttons, the pin through his cheek, where he then wore it the whole rest of the night. I've helped him go up a ladder of machetes where he was jumping into a container of razor blades. And when he fell off the ladder of machetes, I caught him.
Jesus.
At this year's Halloween show, he was the human dartboard, and we all threw darts into his back.
Okay.
I kind of hit it. He specifically said, don't get me in the head of the neck. I'm not a dart player.
No.
It went in his neck, and I felt so terrible, but he assured me he was okay. No, he's smart. He took one of those metal meter sticks and held it along his spine.
There you go.
So at least he was going to be
good
there.
Safety.
Yeah. So at this particular show, this outdoor one, Christopher could do some fire breathing. Mm-hmm. So at our last song, which he had heard so many times from playing with us, he knew the timing of it. He was doing fire breathing in time with the shots of the music, right?
Really?
And even though he was several feet in front of the stage, the wall of heat that's hitting you. And then you see bands like Metallica or Rammstein or whatever who you can just, it was like this tiny little taste. And I was like, this is what I need in my life. So yeah, if I had the budget, pyro would be the thing. I really like that.
Yeah. What else would you have on stage if you had a really cool budget?
Basically, for the Electric Dead, it would be like our version of White Zombie's Astro Creep stage, which looked like a horror movie junkyard with like chain link and they had crucified clowns and they're like, not just doing the carnival thing because that's not really our thing, but like gravestones. Like it would be
cool.
Yeah. that would be the dream for that band.
That's
And then
awesome.
for Temple, I would love to get those cauldrons. When I saw Black Sabbath on their farewell tour, they had along the back line they had these cauldrons that like had fire in them, right?
Yeah?
Yeah,
That's super
I
cool.
would really love to have. We have cauldrons of fake fire,
Right.
I would love cauldrons of real
With
fire.
real fire.
Yeah.
That's when you know you made it, when you can afford the real
The
fire.
real fire. Yeah. Yeah.
Right on. So I've only got one more question for you.
Sure.
But you should be able to answer it. You've already been able to mention it a couple already. What are your top 5 all-time favorite bands? If you can't do 5, give me 3.
Oh, I can do 5.
Oh, perfect.
Okay. Emperor.
Yep.
Mortis. His Dungeon Synth stuff. I know he went into his synth thing, which, was I thought it was great that he went and did something that he felt very strongly about. But that Dungeon Synth stuff was what I really loved.
Yeah.
Yeah. ZZ Top.
Okay.
Oh yeah, Billy Gibbons is I mean, 𝕆𝖕𝖈𝖆𝖒𝖕's an amazing guitar player and composer, like, and Jay from White Zombie was awesome, but like, to me, Billy Gibbons is the coolest guitar player. Like, the Electric Dead for me is a mix of ZZ Top and Danzig and the Misfits.
That's
Like,
cool.
You put those things together, and to me, that's what made the Electric Dead.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
The original Misfits.
Yeah, with Danzig, yeah.
Yeah, and White Zombie.
That's awesome.
Those would be like, those were the bands that every time I heard them, I just went, wow. Like that, it was just like you heard it and just everything changed, right? Like from the first time the beginning of Le Sexorcisto was playing, and I'm like, what is this, right? And just hooked. Same thing with the Misfits, or the first time I heard Emperor. Just each of those like made such a massive impression immediately that they've just stayed with me forever. There's been many other bands that I enjoy and that I like, but those, really...
Those are the ones that hit home for you.
Oh, big time. Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, thank you for joining me today. I really appreciate it. If you want to let the listeners know, and the viewers, where everyone can find all your projects, all the social medias, and if you have anything else to give us shout-outs to, now would be your time.
Okay, well, the Electric Dead are on Facebook and Instagram. We're also on Bandcamp, so you can get some of the music there. I think we're on iTunes too. Again, technology.
Yeah.
I'm not paying so much attention to it, right? That's key. Like, Keisho's really good at that kind of thing. I'm really lucky in each band. There's like a technological savvy genius person, right? Where I can just kind of go like, I just write some songs, and some music, and I don't have to do anything else. And Temple of Night is on Facebook and Instagram and Bandcamp, but that's it. We don't have our music anywhere else other than Bandcamp. Oh, YouTube. Mm-hmm. Both bands are on YouTube, and the Wake has stuff on Bandcamp, YouTube. We have a Facebook page, but I think that one, I think you have to be invited. I think we have to change that. So if you really want to follow the Wake page, shoot me a message on Facebook and I'll hook you up.
Sounds good.
But we also have an Instagram page. So, all the standard stuff that everyone's kind of part of now.
Right on. Perfect. Well, we'll end it there. Take it easy, folks. Right on. Thank you.